All right, welcome everybody to the 9/11 Tribute Museum's first live Real Talks program. I'm your moderator, Kwaku Farrar, and joining me today are Jeanette and Desiree. Welcome, Jeanette and Desiree.
Hello.
Now, typically, as some of you may know, if you follow us on YouTube, this program is typically recorded and consists of two of our docents who do not know each other very well, at least. And the goal is for them to meet and really share their personal 9/11 experiences with each other and kind of gain an insight into each other's experience and just kind of strengthen the bond within the 9/11 community, which is really what the 9/11 Tribute Museum itself is all about. For those of you that are unfamiliar with the 9/11 Tribute Museum, we are the original 9/11 museum that was created in 2006 by the September 11 Families Association. And what makes our museum special is that all of our volunteers have a personal connection to 9/11. Survivors, family members, first responders, recovery workers, residents, business owners who are in the area, all come to tribute and share their personal stories with people who want to learn about 9/11, as we feel that's the most impactful way to learn about 9/11. As this week marks the 19th anniversary, we really wanted to do something special and change the format up a little bit and connect two docents who have just a long history, especially with tribute, which they'll share later. I don't want to steal any of their thunder. So we will get started here. So let's kick things off by the both of you kind of discussing your lives pre 9/11, kind of what you did, where you were in relation to the World Trade Center, kind of what the neighborhood, the environment was like. And then after that, feel free to kind of share your 9/11 stories with each other, even though I know you both kind of know them, but it'd be great to hear again. And then after that, we'll kind of see where the conversation goes. So without any further ado, I will silence myself and give the floor up to you two.
Okay, Jeanette, do you want to start at least where you were prior to September 11th?
Sure. I worked downtown in the American Express building, right across the street from One World Trade. At the time, it was called Three World Financial Center. And I worked for Lehman Brothers there and lived in Staten Island. And I lived in the part of Staten Island that's closer to Brooklyn, so my commute was pretty sweet. It was a nice short bus ride, and once I was at work, I didn't have to go anywhere far to get anything I needed. So it was a pretty cool setup for me.
I was thinking the same thing when Kwaku asked the question. I actually worked at the World Trade Center in Tower 2. And I worked for Aon. And like you, I live in New Jersey, so the commute was just excellent. Once I got to the train station, here in New Jersey, I never had to go outside. It was on the train. I was in Hoboken. I was underground. I came up into the Trade Center. The commute was wonderful. So, and that did change after September 11th. So we didn't have that easy ride that went in and out. And I'm so sorry that we aren't out on the memorial doing tours together, because that is what we do. And I do miss that. I miss actually the connection with our visitors who come and being able to tell our story. And it has been, 6 months since I've told my story, so I'm a little out of practice. But, I do encourage everybody to please, come join us. And come take a tour, because you will get two different stories. As Kwaku said in his introduction, we are a family who have experienced September 11th. We are a community, and you can get two very different stories. And I think with that, let me just launch into my story. But before I even begin, let's refresh the events of that day. I know they're coming up at the 19th anniversary on Friday, but let's just refresh everybody's memory. So a quick timeline: at 8:46 that morning, American Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower, and approximately 16 minutes later, United Flight 175 crashed into the South Tower. There were two other planes that day. There was American Flight 77 that flew out of Washington, D.C. And we know that that came back into the D.C. area and crashed into the Pentagon. And then the final flight that day was United 93, which took off at Newark, New Jersey, and we believe was headed back into the Washington, D.C. area. We don't know because we had passengers and crew on that plane, knowing they were being hijacked, actually took control, stormed the cockpit, and that plane went down in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So my story, as I said, I worked at the Trade Center. I worked on the 101st floor of Tower 2, now known as the South Tower. And to be honest with you, I had no idea it was the South Tower until after September 11th, when they started naming them North and South instead of 1 and 2. And, you know, we started work early. We had to be at work at 8:30, and that first plane crashed in at 8:46. Now, I sat on the south side of the South Tower, so as far away as you could be when that first plane entered into the north side of the North Tower. And when it crashed into the North Tower, all I heard was boom. It wasn't very loud, it was a very faint boom. What became distressing was that I had been working on a PowerPoint presentation and the computer went off, the lights went off, but everything came right back on. And we actually thought a transformer had blown because they tended to blow quite often in New York City. But everything came right back up. And it was a beautiful, and I'm sure you remember that, Jeanette, it was a beautiful, beautiful day. The sky was clear, it was blue. You couldn't have had a better day than that September 11th morning. And after that first plane crashed, all we saw when we looked outside the window was paper swirling outside the window. And what had been a beautiful blue sky was now turning brown. And that became a little distressing. My telephone rang. I went into my office. It was a friend of mine at 7 World Trade, and she asked me if I was okay, and I said yes. And I asked her why, and she said she had just learned that a bomb had gone off at the Trade Center. And that kind of explained the paper swirling outside our window. Now I'm on the 101st floor of this building, so there shouldn't be paper swirling outside the window at all. I yelled out to my coworkers. I had just learned a bomb had gone off, and I went back into my office to make a phone call, and it was my mother. I made a call to my mother to tell her what was happening, because I knew that if she had heard what had happened and I didn't report in, I was in trouble. And it was my mother who said, "Are you leaving?" And to be honest with you, that thought hadn't even entered my head. And I told her, yes, I would leave. And she said, "Okay, then call me when you get to the lobby level." I did not own a cell phone at that time, and she knew that there was a bank of payphones at the lobby level, so I promised I would call. And then being a New Jersey commuter, I had to pack my bag, so I was packing up my PATH train ticket to get to Hoboken, my Hoboken train ticket, my book to read, because as you know, you don't go anywhere on New York transportation without some sort of reading material. So I was packing up, and I noticed that Jim, our office manager, was walking past. He had heard me say that a bomb had gone off, and he walked by to tell us that his wife had just called him. She had been watching TV. It was interrupted with the news that a plane had gone into the North Tower, or Tower 1. And that kind of made sense to us, because when you work on the 101st floor of one of these buildings, planes flew below us, helicopters flew below us. On a rainy day, if I needed to run an errand outside the building, I carried an umbrella with me, because I should have said on a snowy day, because you knew that it would have turned to rain by the time we hit the street. So that a little pup plane didn't quite make it to Newark Airport kind of made sense. We thought pilot fatality or mechanical difficulty, and that's why it crashed into the building. I finished packing my bag, and when I looked up, Jim and some of my coworkers was walking past my office again, and I joined them. And it looked like Mama Duck and her ducklings. We just walked right behind each other, and we went from the south side of the building to the west side to the north side. And when we got to the north side, we went up to the windows, and we looked up, we looked down, we looked around, and we didn't see anything, but we didn't know what we should be looking for. And at that point, Jim said, "Time to go home." And we thought, this is great. It's not even 9 a.m. and we're headed home, or at least go downstairs to have a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, and we'd come back when we got the all clear. Now I headed towards the elevators. which were in the core of the building, in the center of the building. And I watched Jim walking down the corridor because I knew he was going to do another sweep of the floor, and he wanted to make sure everybody was getting out. Now, the way those buildings were designed, so there were two 110-story buildings. There were 99 elevators in each of those towers. So in the morning, I would have come in through the lobby level and have taken the 78th floor sky lobby elevator. There were two sky lobbies, one on 44, one on 78. So depending on where you worked, depended what elevators you took, I would have taken the 78th floor sky lobby elevator, gone up to the 78th floor, gotten out on that lobby level, and then transferred to local elevators to 101. So that morning I was waiting on the 101st floor. I took the elevator down to the 78th floor very quickly, and it was packed with people. They guesstimate at least 400 people were waiting on that lobby level for the elevators to go down to the ground floor lobby. Now, it was very loud. People were talking, they were laughing. People were trying to make cell phone calls. Now, cell phones didn't work that day, but it didn't stop people from trying to make those calls. And I've been asked, did I hear the announcements on that floor that our building was safe and that we should return to our offices? I didn't, but it was so loud on that floor, I would not have heard anything. But colleagues of mine who took the stairs said they did hear those announcements, and they watched people return to their offices because it was supposedly safe. I do know I got onto one of the last elevators that went from the 78th floor to the ground floor level. I happened to be in an elevator with 3 of my coworkers. And when we got down to the lobby level, it would have been so easy to just turn and go out onto Liberty Street. But the police and the fire department were there, and they asked us not to go out onto Liberty Street, again, for our safety. A lot of the glass in the lower lobby had been imploded. There was glass everywhere. They wanted us to go down into the mall area and find our own way out. And we did. We went down to the mall. And when I came back out onto street level, it was on the Liberty Street side. And we took about 10 steps out when Ingrid, my coworker, yelled, "Run." To this day, she doesn't remember why she yelled "run," but she did. And we all took off across the street, across Liberty Street towards Zuccotti Park. I can tell you the time was 9:03, because at 9:03 is when United 175 went into our building. And with that said, went into our building. And when those towers came down, my company lost 176 people. And I lost 19 people on my floor, including Jim, who was our office manager, who told us to leave. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Jeanette, to tell your story.
You've done that to me more than once. Okay. So I think what I've always found interesting about sharing our stories with each other, whether they're on a tour or just talking to each other, is that everybody's is so different. Everybody's story is so different, even though we all know what happened that day remains the same. And obviously Desiree is a survivor, and so am I. My story is very different. I was at my desk at 8:46 a.m. I always get to work very, very, very early, even to this day. And I heard and I felt the first plane hit, which is interesting because I think Desiree was closer, your building's closer to One World Trade than mine was. But I guess I was on the right side of it, or the side that the impact, excuse me, I could feel the impact. My building didn't sway, but I could feel it in my bones. And I thought it was weird, but I wasn't afraid, and I most certainly didn't think anything was wrong. Until I glanced out of the window and I saw something, I don't know, fall by the window. I knew it wasn't a bird, I was on the 16th floor of my building, so I became that nosy New Yorker, and I pressed my face against the window, and I looked up, and I saw a big hole in One World Trade and black smoke, and that's when I thought, a bomb went off across the street, much like 1993. And I ran back to my desk to call my older sister, who worked for the government down by One Police Plaza, walking distance from where we worked, but not like close enough to have lunch. And I said to my sister Gail, I think they bombed the World Trade Center. I wasn't afraid. I was upset because I knew people across the street were dead, but I wasn't afraid. And she said, "You're kidding me." No, why would I kid about that? So she hung up, she called me back short, a few minutes afterwards, and said, no, it wasn't a bomb, it was a plane. And I'm like, oh, that's awful. Really? Because the day was beautiful, like Desiree said. Blue skies, not a cloud anywhere. It was like the perfect day. So all I could think of was what the pilot must have had a heart attack or stroke, because you couldn't miss the Twin Towers sticking out of the ground. And I went back to work, honestly. I said a few prayers, and then I just went back to work. And then at 9:03, when Desiree's building was hit, I knew nothing. I didn't hear anything. Nothing. My sister called me, though, like right away, and all the phones in the office started ringing. Now, it's only 9:03. There was a handful of people in the office, not many, including my boss. And my sister said to me, "Jeanette, 2 World Trade just got hit by another plane. You gotta go." And I was like, Gail, it's not 2 World Trade, it's 1 World Trade. I could see it, and not realizing it was actually another plane, and it was not an accident. She never said that. My sister never was excited. She didn't scream at me. She was just very calm and said, no, it is 2 World Trade, and you need to leave. And we went back and forth a little bit because I didn't want to go. I don't want to go out there. Whatever's going on, I don't want to go out there. But she was convincing. Again, she didn't yell. She wasn't that kind of big sister. I'm the one with the big mouth. And I listened to her, because thankfully my mother raised my sister to take care of me and also raised me to listen to her. So those things worked well for both of us. I left the building, but only after I packed my bag, like Desiree. I wasn't in a rush. I packed my bag. I decided to take my sandwich, but leave my banana, changed my shoes. Like, I was not in any rush. I was not in any danger. Never did I think the word terrorist, or I didn't think anything. In hindsight, I think I was protecting myself from the reality of what was going on. That being said, I got on 2 different elevators to change, had to change to get to the ground floor. And the whole time thinking whatever was going on high up in the buildings, nowhere near me. Until I got to the lobby of my building, where I saw a bunch of people bleeding and on the ground and trying to come in from the danger outside. And then I was scared. But I had a purpose, and it was to meet my sister. That purpose is probably what kept me alive, because I was focused on that and only that. I saw only through a tiny little window in my mind my sister Gail, and where I had to meet her at McDonald's in front of Thomas and Broadway. Now, I only know those street names now. Then I just know where McDonald's is because I like McDonald's. So there I went, and I don't remember much about that walk. I just know I got there, and there she was. And that's probably when I completely broke down, when I allowed my mind to understand and accept we're in a little bit of trouble here, and we might die. People are trying to kill me. And I'm not anybody, I'm just me. Why would somebody want to kill me? I was a mess, hot mess. And my sister's quite a bit shorter than I am. I was hanging on her, crying and blubbering. And she just took me by the shoulders and dry-eyed and said, "We need to leave now." And I, wiped it all away, and we walked up Broadway far away from the danger. By the time the towers collapsed at, I haven't done a tour in so long, 9:59 and 10:28.
You got it.
Thank you, Desiree. I was nowhere near the site. I didn't hear it, I didn't smell it, I didn't know it. I knew nothing. Until I saw some people walking with that ash. I don't even know what to call it. It was all over them. And they looked like it was an even amount. They looked just one color. And I stopped someone to say, like, what happened? And they said, the World Trade Center's gone. Where did it go? I had no idea, no comprehension of what happened until I finally got in front of a TV several hours later when I arrived at a friend's house in the city still. And then I watched in horror and thought, that can't be real. It just can't be real. And fast forward to later that night, my sister and I found a bus home to Staten Island. We live like 5 minutes apart. I went home to my house, she was in her house, and I watched on TV what everybody was watching and what we'll watch again on Friday, with horror and wondering who survived, who didn't survive in my company. Thankfully, everybody survived, but so many did not. And for me, because I wasn't paying too much attention to the horror that day, I was protecting myself, as I said, on 9/12 is when I was changed and totally different, totally scared of everything, scared to stay home, scared to go out, scared to go to work, scared not to go to work. I was scared to do everything. And I think I must have shed the Jeanette of 9/10 because on 9/12 I was somebody different. And I probably didn't come to grips with that. Sorry. I think if it wasn't this week, I would be able to do this with a little more seamlessly, but I didn't come to grips with that until 2010, when I got a new job downtown. So Lehman Brothers, as I said, was in the American Express building. After 9/11, we moved midtown, and I never stepped foot downtown again. I didn't want to talk about 9/11. I didn't want to know about 9/11. I didn't want to think about 9/11. I tucked it away in a very dark, dark part of my mind, a safe part, and never addressed it. Never spoke to my sister about it, nothing, zero. And then in 2010, I got a new job in 2 World Financial Center, right next door to the American Express building. Just as the plaza was being built and the new One World Trade was coming up. And I thought, well, this is nice that they're doing something with this area. Still didn't really want to talk about it. And then I heard a tour going through my building, and I was listening. I heard more than one tour. Some tours, I could tell that the people didn't know what they were talking about. They weren't there. Like, that's not what happened. And then I heard another tour, and I thought, oh my goodness, that lady that's talking, she lost her husband. I was, one of those people that kind of listen to other people's tours. And so then I stopped somebody and I asked them, what is this tour? And they told me, oh, it's the Tribute Center, now the Tribute Museum. And so I looked into it and I thought, I think I'm gonna go on one of these tours just to see like what's going on. And that was a life-changing decision because I signed up for a tour with my niece, and lo and behold, my tour guide was Desiree. And of course, I didn't know her. I'd never seen her before in my life. She told her story much like she did today. And I cried hard. And then after the tour was over, I thanked her and I asked her, like, how do you even do this? Like, why? Like, it's torture. And she explained it's to honor Jim and it's good for me. That's what she said. This is good for me. And I thought, I can't imagine how it's good for you. And she said, you should try it. And I thought, girl, I got a job. I can't be doing a tour in the middle of the day. And she's like, yeah, I have a job too. you make the time. And I thought, maybe. And I went home and I thought about it. I prayed about it, talked to my mom about it, and decided I would try it. And I became a tour guide. And the first time I did a tour with Desiree was like, I don't even know, it was just life affirming that yes, we went through this terrible day and terrible time that followed after, but here I am with another survivor and we can talk about it. And she was so right. It was good for my soul. And it did honor my sister who saved my life. It honors Jim, who indirectly saved my after 9/11 life because of him, Desiree was my tour guide. And now here I am. So I have a lot to be thankful for, and tribute and being a tour guide has added a layer to my 9/11 story that is bright and hopeful and full of love and support, and has made my 9/11 story something that I'm actually happy to live with and happy to share.
I agree. I think tribute has brought us together as a community, and as you said, there's so many stories. We do tours with survivors, we do tours with first responders, we do tours with residents of the area and the family members. And I know that one of our tour guides, one of our colleagues always says, you know, I always knew my story, but until you hear them all, it becomes a mosaic. Each of our stories intertwine with each other.
Right.
They are so very, very close. And I know we have both done a lot with you more so than me. We have done a lot with our 9/11 stories and helping and volunteering. And I know you have certainly embraced September 11th and all the different aspects of it. I know that you've been up to Gander, I believe, once, twice, just once?
3 times, and I'm actually supposed to be there today. But, you know.
And for those who don't know about Gander, the musical Come From Away is based on what happened in Newfoundland, in Gander, Newfoundland, when all the planes came down. They were forced down on September 11th, and many of them landed in Gander, and that community, that town, and surrounding towns actually embraced the airplane folks, and that is well remembered, especially with the musical Come From Away. But you have done so much more, Jeanette. What else have you done that has changed your life?
Well, I think, I don't know that it's much more, but it's all definitely because I took your tour. So you have to own that.
I'm going to take all the credit.
You have to own that.
I encouraged you. That's all I
But currently, as I mentioned, I was supposed to be in Gander, not necessarily for 9/11, but purposely I wanted to be there for 9/11 because I've made such good friends there. That one trip for the 15th anniversary totally changed my life again and added another layer of goodness and friendship to my 9/11 story. But both you and I have also been to Japan as 9/11 survivors with a group of other tribute volunteers who agreed to go over to Tohoku where the tsunami and the earthquake and the nuclear disaster hit back in 2012. And we were just going to go to share our stories and to share our compassion for them and our understanding of what it's like to live through such tragedy, whether it's man-made or natural. And in that experience, within the group of us who went, our friendships even grew deeper, including mine and Desiree's. Again, another layer, to this 9/11 goodness, which is really hard to say. 9/11 and goodness for me, especially if I'm around a family member who lost a loved one or somebody who lost their home. Honestly, I didn't lose any of that. I just lost the Jeanette of 9/10, 2001. And she was all right, but I'm better now. I gotta say, I think I'm better now. I'm a better person. And through the things that we do away from tribute, but connected, it brings me back to where I finally accepted that I did survive 9/11. I did. And I need to accept that and not feel guilty about surviving. And I learned that directly from other survivors like Desiree and other people I met at Tribute, how to deal with survivor's guilt and then how to do something good with this that happened to us. Right?
I do. And it's funny you bring up survivor's guilt because I never felt that.
Really?
Yeah. And I think I didn't because when I got off of our floor, I just assumed everybody else had gotten off because when we walked around, you know, the floor, which is 1 acre, there was nobody left on the floor.
Oh.
You know, I was one of the last ones going around, and when Jim said time to go, and he was going to do another sweep, there really was nobody left everybody else had left.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really felt the survivor's guilt, but I know that we both have a very deep faith, and I think faith definitely got us through.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because one of my after stories to 9/11 is my company did offer therapy. You could have one-on-one or group therapy or one-on-one, but my division didn't find out about it until 6 months later. So we were kind of just floundering around for a little bit, but there was a group of us who would meet in the ladies' room, sometimes accidentally and sometimes purposely. We'd call up and say, could we meet? And we just kind of talk to each other, just to communicate, just to see were we all on the same page. Are you going through this? I'm going through this. Are you going through this? Just so that we knew we were okay. And we called those, you know, the bathroom therapy sessions. And it's funny, of the 6 of us, 3 of us had a very deep faith. And it's, I believe we're the ones who actually came through this a lot easier.
Right.
Better, but a lot easier than those who did not. And I think our faiths also helped us. And it doesn't matter what your faith is because the 3 of us came from 3 totally different faith-based religions. So it doesn't matter as long as you have a deep-rooted faith, I think also helped get people through this.
That I didn't know that about your little bathroom therapy sessions.
Yes.
That's interesting, especially because my company also offered therapy and I went. Yeah, I'm all for therapy. That wouldn't have been my first therapy session. But the therapist was, I don't know. I don't even know what to say. It didn't do well for me. So I just dropped it after one time. And my therapy became Tribute. Talking to people like you, talking to people like Tracy, who lost her son, and Anthony, who was down there for 9 months. That was my therapy because you all allowed me or helped me to be okay with feeling what I was feeling. 9 years later. 9 years later is when it all came out. And you didn't look at me like, now, Jeanette? And nobody said, yeah, we've been through that. It was all like if it had just happened to me and it was okay not to be okay. Tribute gave me permission not to be okay and that I could still function as a healthy human being and give back to society and give back to the community, even though I wasn't okay. So just because you're okay, I'm not broken, I'm just not okay. And that's all right.
It's funny because I think you might remember in the early days of doing the tours, when we had a lead and a support that would go out on the tours at Tribute, we were always taught, you always ask, it doesn't matter what day it is, are you okay? Are you willing to talk?
Right.
And that still holds true 19 years later. Because, and like you said, it is the anniversary on Friday. You know, from August on, I just feel this sadness. And it's not a deep depression. And, you know, I've learned to live with it because I know it's coming and I know it'll also fade a little bit and then it will come again.
Right.
But we don't have to be better. We just feel it and keep moving on.
Right. And I think even when I'm, depending on what's going on in my life, when I give a tour, I don't know how many tours I've done, 100, 200, whatever, it doesn't matter. I could probably count on one hand when I didn't cry. When I didn't get a lump in my throat, when I didn't, because it's not an easy story to tell. You know, there are parts, of course, the story I told today is not my whole 9/11 story. I got a lot more to say, right? But it depends what's going on in my life. So when my mother moved to heaven, I was a mess. I was, you know, I kill a fly. Oh my God, the fly's dead. You know, I was a mess. But yet, you know, right near Christmas time, I wasn't a mess because I'm happy that it's Christmas or whatever. And this week I'm a mess for everything. But I'm okay with not being okay as long as I'm not driving. I can't drive and cry like that because that's no good.
Well, who's driving anywhere these days?
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. I moved my car. That's it. You're right. You're right about
From
that.
one side to the other?
Well, we don't have alternate side in Staten Island, but I hold a spot for my neighbor so that when she comes home from work, because she is working, she'll have a spot because I live in a tiny community. So, and then she doesn't have to walk far. So it's those things like that, the little things like that that you could do for people. Somehow always comes back. The circle is complete and comes back, like you mentioned, to your faith, just trying to be a good person. And one of the other things I'm involved in is Pay It Forward 9/11, which Kevin Turf, who is the real Kevin T from Come From Away, he was stranded in Gander in 2001 on 9/11. And when he came home to say thank you to the people of Gander and Appleton and all those folks in Newfoundland who opened up their homes and their hearts for those stranded, he gave his employees $100 each and said, go do a random act of kindness in honor of the kindness I received on 9/11. And he's done that every year. Now he doesn't own the company anymore. And now he just spreads the word. And a lot of people do it anyway on 9/11. But he just started a board. I'm the board secretary now, and God help me. And so I tried to do something very, very specific on 9/11, not just I shouldn't say just, not the normal goodness or kindness that you show anybody every day, which as Christians or even as anybody who believes in the higher power, we try to be like, but a specific way to express our gratitude just to mankind. Because the badness of that day and the evilness of that day cannot outweigh or outshine the goodness that's within us. We can't allow that. And that's just one way to do that.
As one of our other tribute colleagues has said, that was an awful day. Do I wish it never happened? Yes, but it did. And I am so fortunate to have met everybody at Tribute. We would never have met Jeanette. We would never have bonded the way we have. We would have never done the good we have continued to do. So very nice.
Yeah. I think that's actually a really good end note. Like, you can't change what happened, but you can make change with what you do with what happened. Absolutely. Right? You can do something with it. And Tribute is one of the many ways that I define 9/11. Our dear friend Ann Van Hine, who also went to Japan, two of the trips with me, she said that to some of the girls in the high school, or the kids in the high school. Don't let 3/11, which is their tsunami earthquake, don't let it define you and who you are. You define it. You take it and you do something with it. And that's what we do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. And I'm more than grateful that I got you as my tour guide that day, because if I didn't, maybe I would have never even, I don't know. I don't think so. It was you. You made me do it. You encouraged me. Okay, is that the word? You encouraged me. Thank you for that encouragement, Desiree.
All righty. Well, thank you both so much for sharing your story, as well as the personal insight and just the wisdom as well. Like, it's really useful, especially what we're going through right now, that people can hear your story and really take your experience and seeing how you made it to the other side of your experience. And, you know, a lot of families are going through a lot right now, individually and, you know, as a whole. So I hope that, you know, they take a lot from your message of really, you know, pushing through, having faith, and, you know, just trying to be a good person and not letting, you know, bad things define you, because we do get caught up and, you know, kind of wallowing in the things that we've been through. But it's really important to really keep your head up, keep, you know, looking forward, and just try to make, like you say, Jeanette, make change, be the change, you know, and that's really important for people to know. So thank you so much for sharing that. Quickly too, since you, you know, since we're talking about the anniversary coming up, you know, something else that I really want to impart on the audience watching this, you know, I've seen a lot of talk about, well, you know, 9/11 was 19 years ago. We're going through all this stuff now. It's imperative that we get rid of that thought process, because 9/11, even though it was 19 years ago, it is every day for everybody who is affected by it. And that cannot go, you know, unnoticed. There's still people getting sick to this very day, and there are people still dying to this very day, along with everybody who has to live with what they experienced. So I urge everybody who watches this to really remember that and really respect 9/11 as such, and really share that with people. And, you know, hopefully through hearing these stories, now you have a deeper understanding of, you know, that day and the days and months and years since, so that you can really share that and say, hey, this is something that needs to be remembered. Let me tell you about a story that I heard, and really share this information and really help people understand what this was like on a personal level, because it's really something that we need to truly never forget. We had it as a hashtag. It was something that people said, and, you know, over time people forget it, but it's something that we can't forget. We truly can never forget, because if we forget, history is doomed to repeat itself, and we don't want anything like that to ever happen again. So it's important that we remember this, and I hope that by hearing these stories that you really take a lot away, and, you know, really make a difference in your communities, because that's the only way we're going to really just prosper as humanity moving forward. So again, Jeanette and Desiree, thank you both so much for this program. It's fantastic. I'm really hoping that all the viewers really get a lot out of this, and really, you know, just become better, even better people, you know, after watching this. So I really thank you both for participating, and, you know, hopefully soon, I mean, we are open now in a limited capacity, but, you know, once things are really, you know, safe out here and we're able to do tours again, I can't wait to see you both here doing tours and really, you know, educating and inspiring people with your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.